All right. Hey, y'all. Welcome to this edition of History and Highballs. We're so glad that you're joining us for this evening's program, History and Highballs Haunted Mordecai with the Ghost Guild. My name is Stacy and I handle adult education here at the North Carolina Museum of History. So whenever you join us for one of these History and Highballs programs, you and I get to virtually spend the evening together listening to some incredible stories about North Carolina places and people and what makes our state so special. If you enjoyed tonight's program, we invite you to head over to the museum's website at ncmuseumofhistory.org, where you can learn more about our upcoming programs, exhibits, and digital resources. This is also where you can find information about joining our North Carolina Museum of History Associates. Our associates and foundation provide crucial funding and support to the museum, which in addition to many other things, helps make programming like this evening's event possible. We would like to thank all of those of you who donated funds towards this evening's program. We do our best to keep our programs free to attend, but there are costs associated with keeping all of our series going. And we just continue to be so thankful and humbled by your generous support of the museum. A few quick housekeeping items for this evening. We ask that you please keep your mics muted throughout the entirety of the program and to please type any questions that you have for our guest speakers into the chat function located at the bottom center of your screen. At the end of our program, our intern Bobby will ask our speakers as many of your questions as time allows. So we're going to switch things up a bit this evening and start off our program with a video. Last year, the Ghost Guild joined us during this season by presenting History and Highballs, the Haunted Battleship, North Carolina. This year, Mordecai Historic Park's official paranormal research team is back to take us into Mordecai House in Raleigh, North Carolina. Tonight, we have 6 members of the Ghost Guild with us. We'll be introducing them at the end of this clip, and they will answer your questions and test your Mordecai knowledge, giving you a chance to win one of 2 I Got Haunted by the Mordecai Ghost t-shirts. So we're going to get started with that video right now.
Hello and welcome to the namesake property of Mordecai Historic Park, the Mordecai House. My name is Nelson Noss, and I'm the Executive Director and Co-founder of the Ghost Guild, a registered nonprofit paranormal research organization that's based in Raleigh, North Carolina. We've had the pleasure of serving as the exclusive paranormal research team for Mordecai Historic Park since 2017. When founding the Ghost Guild, we wanted to create a group that was a mix of our passion for historical places with unexplained activity, stirred with a pinch of education, a dash of folklore, a spoonful of history, and a base of science. We wanted to explore and learn, all while bringing attention to these unique sites' preservation efforts. Tonight's beautiful house in the heart of downtown Raleigh was built in 1785. In fact, the house predates the founding of the city, and it's the oldest house in Raleigh on its original foundation. Now, of course, our interest is about more than just the fascinating history of the house. This house is believed by many to be the most haunted home in Raleigh. In addition to the house, the park also contains 8 historic structures and a recreation of Ellen Mordecai's garden circa 1842. The park, which is operated by the City of Raleigh Parks, Recreation and Cultural Resources, is open to the public and offers guided tours. It hosts several events and programs throughout the year, including the annual Haunted Festival, which is a free event that takes place on the last Saturday of October, which happens to be this Saturday night. As part of that festival, we get to share findings from our investigations of all of these amazing buildings located here in the park. And this year, we've also added a couple of new Raleigh locations that are also of historical significance. Now, all of that aside, for this evening's program, we're excited to share some of what we've experienced and what we've learned over our 4 years of work in the Mordecai House. We're excited to be bringing you a glimpse into the history, folklore, personal experiences, and some data from our investigations of the house. We hope you'll enjoy a trip inside the realm of the Gray Lady, and that you'll consider joining us for this year's Haunted Festival for even more about this fantastic location.
Today at Mordecai Historic Park, we have many historic buildings. But did you know that the Mordecai House is the oldest home in Raleigh on its original foundation? The original portion of the home predates the city of Raleigh. Built in 1785 as a wedding gift for Henry and Polly Lane by Henry's father, Joel Lane, the home consisted of 4 rooms with 1.5 stories. 3 rooms would have been used as bedrooms, with 1 room used as a working, living, dining, and entertainment space. Joel Lane had already built his own house in 1769, further south and would later become Raleigh, and moved here with his wife, Martha Hinton, and her 3 sons. Early on, he was instrumental in the creation of Wake County itself, even choosing the name. Joel Lane was involved in the Revolutionary War in North Carolina, and served as a delegate to the Provincial Congress in Hillsborough. Later, when the state needed a new capital, he sold a portion of his land to become the city of Raleigh in 1792. Today, he is known as the Father of Raleigh. Henry and Polly Lane had 4 daughters here: Peggy, Nancy, Harriet, and Temperance. And after losing their parents, the 4 daughters would move in with their relatives elsewhere in the area. But all would later return as adults when Peggy Lane married Moses Mordecai. Now Moses was the first Jewish man recorded to have lived in Raleigh. And once he lived in Raleigh, the pronunciation of the family name shifted from Mordecai to Mordecai. Now Moses and Peggy had 3 children before she sadly passed away in 1821. And a few years later, Moses would go on to marry another Lane daughter, Nancy, and had 1 daughter. When Moses passed away in 1824, he left money for Nancy and his half-brother, George Washington Mordecai, to expand the Mordecai House in 1826 into the Greek Revival style that you still see here today. The architect who worked on this extension was named William Nichols. He also remodeled the Capitol building downtown during the same time period. By the 1850s, the Mordecai House was the seat of a plantation that expanded to 1,200 acres, and up to 120 people were enslaved right here on the Mordecai property, some of which have recorded histories, interviews, and photos attributed to them. Mordecai Historic Park is committing to telling the stories of these men, women, and children. This includes stories of individuals such as Cheney, Charlotte, Millie, or Matilda, who cooked in the outdoor kitchen from dawn to dusk. By using these artifacts, the spaces themselves, and research and knowledge from their descendants, we can help bring their history to light. The Mordecai family lived in this house until 1964, and the house and the 3 acres that you see today were purchased by the city of Raleigh 4 years later. The park opened to the public in April of 1972, along with other historic buildings that moved here. With stories spanning over 235 years of both the Mordecai family and those enslaved, the Mordecai House offers a unique opportunity to see multiple centuries of Raleigh history in a single space. If you'd like to learn more about the Mordecai House or other historic buildings at the park, please feel free to come and take a tour.
Raleigh is tucked between the mountains to the west and the sea to the east, centered on land as rich and old as the families that helped make this city the capital of the state of North Carolina. Local tales say that Joel Lane helped convince those in charge that they should buy his land instead of buying land closer to the Neuse River. The Neuse River would have given the city easier access to the sea and the shipping that came with it. But the planning committee met, large kegs were poured, over and over, as the talks continued. Lane footed the bill, and Raleigh became the first planned state capital in the U.S. In fact, many of Raleigh's historic buildings sit on what was once Lane's Wakefield plantation, including the Mordecai House. The house acquired the name Mordecai when Moses Mordecai married into the Lane family and took ownership. As a member of one of the oldest Jewish families in the U.S., Moses soon upended his family traditions and became a Christian while also differentiating himself by changing the family name from Mordecai to Mordecai. While the Mordecai family faced many challenges during the time they owned the house, it's a more recent occupant that captures local imagination. Mary Willis Mordecai Turk was born in 1858 and died in 1937. She's buried near to the home she loved and lived in at Oakwood Cemetery. During her life as lady of the house, and as a lady of the day, she would have been tasked with housekeeping and entertaining. Large get-togethers on Sunday after service and during the holidays would have been her mission. She would have set the tone for the home, either pleasantly or not so pleasantly. The pressure of keeping a large and very old family home in good condition as the city grew and the surrounding world changed from horses and carriages to automobiles and trolleys would have been very challenging indeed. All of which, maintaining her family home, being in charge of entertaining, and charged with meticulous housekeeping, some might wager her life's work, may explain why she's routinely been reported playing piano in her prim black dress. Local historic guides talk about tour groups reporting a lady in period costume in the house. Some have seen just a swirl of mist and heard a pleasant tinkling of the keys. There were reports of doors opening and closing on their own, and pictures that will fall off the wall rather unceremoniously if you remark negatively on the property, curse, or otherwise act improperly in the house by turn-of-the-century standards. But why not see for yourself? Maybe next time you want to take a little trip to the land named for Sir Walter, you should swing by Mordecai House and see if the lady in gray welcomes you with some gentle piano tunes, or if she tells you to clean up your act with more startling antics.
Early on in our investigations of Mordecai Historic Park, we got a video anomaly. We were looking for video evidence of a phantom. Supposedly a woman walks down the stairs and through the hallway in front of the stairs, which are right on the other side of the store. So of course, what you want to do when you've got visual representations of hauntings is set up your video cameras. And in our case, we left the camera locked up running in the building. So there was nobody else in the building. The building was locked and the camera was running all night. And we actually caught what we would call an anomaly. So in the video clip you just watched, you saw the screen go dark twice. Now a lot of people would think that there's something wrong with the camera or the recording system or, some sort of technical problem. Here's why we think this is actually an anomaly and not a technical issue. If the screen went white, we would know that the camera failed. If the signal was lost between the camera and the computer that was recording the video, you would get text on the screen that says the signal is lost. We didn't get a white screen. We didn't get text on the screen. The screen went dark and the time code continued to run. So what that tells us is that something blocked the light between the camera and the IR light on the other side of the hall. So something passed between the camera and the light, not once, but twice. To us, that's an anomaly.
Of all the experiences we've had on the Mordecai property, there is one in particular that we've been focusing on in hopes that we can eventually explain it, especially since several team members have shared a similar experience while alone in the house. The first time I experienced it was when I was sitting alone on the second floor. The house was empty and all the doors were locked. The only person with a key was a volunteer who was on property that night, but not in the house. While sitting in Ellen's room, I heard the distinct noise of the door downstairs being unlocked, opened, and then someone coming inside. My first response was to jump up from where I was sitting and head out to the staircase, where I said, "Hello?" I was expecting the volunteer to answer me, but all I got was silence. I called out again and again, but still no response. My next thought was, uh-oh, I must have left the door unlocked and someone has snuck into the house. I cautiously began creeping down the stairs, shining my flashlight into the darkness below. I didn't see anyone. I stopped about halfway down the staircase, trying to decide what to do. I'm not afraid of ghosts, but a random stranger breaking into a house where I'm alone in the dark, it gives me pause. As I slowly continued down the stairs, still cautiously looking around, I heard the same sound as before. Keys unlocking the side door, the door opening, but this time, the volunteer walked in. With a sigh of relief, I made my way down to her and I asked, "Did you start coming into the house about 5 minutes ago?" With a confused look on her face, she said, "No, I just walked straight over here from the church." I asked if the door had been locked when she got here, and she said it had. She also confirmed that she had not seen anyone outside on the property wandering around. I told her about my experience, and together we walked through the entire house just to ensure there was no one else there. We then tried to recreate the noise, opening different doors, drawers, manipulating different objects in the house. But that side door was the closest we could come to recreating the noise that I heard. The thing is, if this had been an isolated incident, we might have just dismissed it and moved on.
In our most recent investigation, our entire group was sitting on the floor upstairs in Ellen's room. The doors were locked and the lights were out. I was sitting in the bedroom doorway at the top of the stairs. I noticed the battery on my camera, which had 4 hours of life remaining before I went upstairs, had suddenly dropped down to 12 minutes. At the same time, another device that had just been fully charged died mid-use. That's when I heard, coming from the first floor, what sounded like one of the duffel bags we had on the floor of the side entrance. It sounded like it was being dragged across the floor. I could even hear the plastic buckles as they bounced off the small gaps in between the floorboards. We all made our way downstairs to investigate the sound, and were shocked to find the side door unlocked and wide open. Based on Kelly's prior experience, we had decided to focus audio and video on the side door, so we got really excited thinking that we had video of the door being opened and could see if someone had opened it, or if it had opened itself. Well, it turns out the camera had shut itself off. So we then retrieved the audio recorder that we had left close by, and its battery had completely drained. So there's no audio and no video capture of the door opening. Needless to say, we couldn't have been more disappointed. We'll continue focusing on this area of the house, but with more than one camera pointed at the door next time, including a new external camera we've acquired to have a view of the outside of the house.
My favorite personal experience from our time in the Mordecai house came one night when I was alone in the house. I spent some time downstairs checking out the different rooms, using my equipment to do some EVP sessions, asking questions, seeing if I would get any responses. While I was downstairs, I didn't get anything. As I ascended the staircase in the Mordecai house, a heavy feeling began growing over me. It got deeper and deeper as I moved up the stairs. When I got to the top, it stopped me in my tracks. It was a feeling of grief. Now, some people would call me an empath. My whole life, I've been able to sense the emotions of other people, both living and past. What's interesting about me is that those feelings often come with visual images in my mind. In this case, when I was stopped in my tracks at the top of the staircase, I was getting an image of a woman. She was wearing a long dress and she was crying. She was grieving the loss of a child. At the time, we were still new to the Mordecai house, and we were still in the process of digging into the history, so I didn't quite understand what these images were about. The feeling was so strong, though, that I had to leave. I went back downstairs, went outside, and just caught my breath. The assistant director of the Mordecai house was on property that night, so I went and found her, and I told her about my experience. She revealed to me that, in fact, there was a death of a child on the Mordecai property. At the age of 3, Moses Mordecai III died. He was being given a bath, and the bath water was too hot. It scalded little Moses, which led to pneumonia. The grief I was feeling was that of Martha Mordecai. The interesting thing about this work is when we can put the history of the location together with the experiences that we have. When history speaks, we listen.
I was alone in the Mordecai house performing an EVP session while standing on the second floor with my back to this window. During this session, I was attempting to recreate the legends that whenever unflattering things are said of Patty Mordecai, her picture gets toppled over. Although I never saw any movement in regards to her picture, I did capture the following. I only wish that the recording did it justice, because what I heard that night was loud. Here's the clip.
I don't know what that was, but I'm going to tag that.
Now, having heard the clip, feel free to comment what you heard. At the time, I was listening to my recorder in real time, so I don't know if these sounds were audible to the naked ear, but the fact that it was captured on both the video camera and my recorder leads me to believe that they were. Now let's play it a second time.
I don't know what that was, but I'm going to tag that.
So again, what did you hear? I hear 2 thuds followed by a voice, and the thuds even have some bass to them. Now from where I was standing, it sounded like it came from the base of the staircase. However, wanting to eliminate the possibility that these sounds came from outside, we reviewed our external ambient sound recorders. These are recorders that we strategically place around the park for this purpose, but none of the external recorders captured this sound. So this reinforces that the sound came from within the house. Now, exactly what this capture represents is up for debate and would be purely speculative. Having heard it firsthand, the double thuds sound like someone being pushed to the ground from behind. First falling to their knees, the first thud, and then the rest of their body hitting the ground, the second thud. Now, those sounds are followed by an angry voice ordering someone to get up. Knowing some of the plantation's history, could it be that I heard something residual in nature? Perhaps a point in time when an enslaved person was pushed to the ground and then ordered to get up? We might never know for sure, but it's an interesting thought.
When the Ghost Guild investigates at Mordecai, we typically try to mix things up. Each member will spend time alone in different buildings on the property, and then we will rotate throughout the evening. On other occasions, we may spend time together as a team in the different locations, trying experiments or working to debunk data we have gotten on previous investigations. One evening, while a former member was alone in the house, he described an experience that nearly knocked him off his feet. As he was making his way downstairs, he suddenly heard what he could only describe as the sound of someone running in the upstairs hallway, almost like that of a child running from room to room. The steps were so strong that he could feel the vibrations from where he was on the stair landing. It was the first time we've ever seen him rush outside at any location we've investigated. When he explained what he had just experienced, we joined him in the house in an attempt to find a way to recreate what he had heard. As the smallest member of the group, attempting to run in smaller child-sized steps, he said my recreation was the closest to what he had heard. Now, there have been many children at Mordecai. Do some continue to roam the hallways of the house? Or is this the residual noise of a memory from many years ago? The stone tape theory is the speculation that ghosts and hauntings are comparable to tape recordings, and that mental impressions during emotional events can be projected in the form of energy, recorded into items, and then replayed under certain conditions. Could it be that the walls and wood floors of Mordecai house the memories of events from long ago, and that, on occasion, that energy is released for us to witness? This is just another example of the types of questions we ask ourselves and seek to explore while investigating the Mordecai house.
Although our use of the Spirit Box has diminished significantly over the last couple of years, we use the device frequently in our first investigations here at the park. This clip was recorded in our first year investigating the house. I was in Ellen's room, and my time there was almost up. So I decided to ask the following question. Do you want me to stay, or do you want me to leave this room? Let's play the clip, and if you hear a response, share it in the comments. Do you want me to stay or leave this room? Now remember, if you heard anything, write it in the comments. Let's play it once more. Do you want me to stay or leave this room? Now during this Spirit Box session, I heard what I believe to be a clear response to my question. Do you want me to stay or leave this room? Leave the room, and spoken with what sounds like proper English. All right, one last time. Do you want me to stay or leave this room? You've heard it multiple times now, so let me share with you why our use of the device has fallen out of favor. It's mostly because it's simply too prone to pareidolia. Have you ever looked up in the sky and seen familiar shapes in the clouds? Well, that's visual pareidolia. Audio pareidolia, on the other hand, is hearing words that are not actually in the sounds that you're hearing. This occurs by misinterpreting words that are being said or by hearing words in random noise. In auditory pareidolia, your brain searches for a recognized pattern. It finds the closest match and then processes the incoming sensory information to enhance the apparent match. Now, the Spirit Box is a very popular device, but it's important to keep pareidolia in mind if you choose to use one.
Every time I've investigated the smokehouse on the Mordecai property, I have felt the presence of a man in the far back corner. The first couple of times I investigated, I could feel his fear, his uncertainty about who we were and why we were there. The more I have spent time with him in there, speaking to him, the more that fear has turned to curiosity. The last time our team investigated and I was alone in the smokehouse, I said my usual friendly hello, and I placed some equipment in that corner. I then moved to the other side of the space to give him some room. I spoke to him and played him music, and not only could I feel him there with me, but something started to trigger my equipment. And when I said my goodbyes and I went home that night, I had what I think was a dream. In the dream, I was asleep in my bed and I woke to see the man from the smokehouse. He was standing just outside of my bedroom closet. Now, he was not there to frighten me and he did not speak. He just simply watched as if he was curious himself as to how he came to be there. In the dream, I offered words of kindness and care, but I also explained that he could not stay, that I was glad he had visited, but that I hoped he might take this opportunity to move on. He nodded, and I immediately then woke up to the darkness of my room. I've often wondered, was it a dream? I'm looking forward to spending more time in that smokehouse and seeing if he's still there, or if perhaps he took my advice and he's moved on to a better place.
During one of our investigations, I was in the Andrew Johnson's birthplace when I heard what I can best describe as gravel being displaced. Upon making my way back to the house, I heard Jenny, another team member, speak about what she had just heard. She had been in the smokehouse doing an EVP session by herself when she heard heavy footsteps on the gravel coming from outside the door. Assuming it was a team member, she opened the door and looked around. There's nobody there.
It was then time for everyone to rotate to their next assigned location in the park, and my turn to spend time in the smokehouse. Now, after finding out what Nick and Jenny had heard, I purposely stood in this doorway with the door open, interested to see if I also could hear these footsteps. Well, after a few minutes, I did. The sound was coming from here, and although I could clearly hear what sounded like someone walking, I couldn't see anyone as I was making my way towards the sound. Now, although the cadence of the footsteps was what I would expect from a human adult, I did want to make sure that it wasn't a critter that was somehow responsible. So I pulled out our thermal camera to see if I could pick up some thermal heat signature of something that wasn't clearly visible. But I saw no such signature.
We still don't know what we heard that night, but one thing is for sure. We'll be paying close attention to this area of the park in our future investigations in hopes of solving this mystery.
We hope that you've enjoyed this History in Highballs Haunted Mordecai edition. We also hope that you'll join us for the Haunted Festival this Saturday, where we'll take a look at more Mordecai Historic Park buildings and some additional locations that are also operated by the City of Raleigh Parks Recreation and Cultural Resources, specifically the Borden Building and Tucker House. And if you're in the area, stop by and take a tour of the Mordecai House and see if you can bump into any lingering inhabitants while you're there. If you do, drop us a line on our Facebook page, Instagram, or YouTube channel to let us know. But before we leave you, we're down to our favorite part of the presentation, when we get to hear from you and answer your questions. So hang around.
All right. So I now have the pleasure of introducing our panel for tonight's program, members of the Ghost Guild. We have Executive Director and Co-founder Nelson Noss, Co-founder Kelly McConkey, investigators Nicholas Wendling and John Michael, and the team's historical researchers Tracy Bailey and Christina Zealous. Nelson, the floor is yours. Welcome back.
Thank you for having us. So for the questions, is there someone that's going to be selecting questions for us?
Yes, so our adult programs intern Bobby is with us and he can ask you the questions from the chat.
Perfect.
Hello, yes, that'd be me. So we've got quite a few actually. So just going in order, in the order they were asked, does battery drainage indicate a presence or say an alarm or a fire detector going off, I guess?
John?
That's me taking this. The easy answer is no one knows. Yeah, there's a lot of sorry, I got to get my thoughts together. So I actually have an experiment going on right now where I am taking batteries and I'm leaving them at my house because my house, as far as I'm aware, has no claims to be haunted. Then I'm leaving another set of batteries at the purported haunted places that we go. And I've been testing, I've only done it once, but I've been testing the batteries as, after each investigation to see if there's any kind of drainage or anything like that. And so maybe we can come up with a conclusion about, do batteries get drained at haunted places more often than supposedly not haunted places? But, for right now, who knows if ghosts can drain batteries or not? I don't think anybody really has a definitive answer for that.
I mean, it is a belief by lots of people in the field that
they say.
Yes, it is. But I mean, has there been any testing done? And that's actually, I guess, what we're trying to do
for sure,
is to try to have a control the batteries that are left at his house versus the ones that are at the location that we're investigating with claims of activity.
We've definitely had that happen before. You'll show up at an investigation with a bunch of batteries that you thought you fully charged, only to find out 10 minutes later they're dead. Can you rule that up as paranormal activity? Probably not. I mean, we could have forgot to charge them. It could have just been bad batteries. We don't know. That's why we're doing, why John here is doing the experiment.
I know that this is the Mordecai presentation, and for anybody who was here last year, you got to see the presentation about the North Carolina battleship. But it reminds me of when we were on the battleship, and we were, I was sitting in a turret by myself, and I had my grandfather's World War II medal, and I had my dad's Navy uniform on. And we were using several different pieces of equipment, but it was very interesting because we're very skeptical about the SLS camera, which if you play video games, its intention is to map out people. And so it's very easy for that equipment to falsely map out human figures. But as I was sitting in this turret, it was very interesting because there was a human figure that showed up on the camera with me. And it was responding to what we would ask. If we asked it to sit down, the figure would sit down. If we asked it to stand up or move a hand, it would do that. And then it was funny because the figure stood up, appeared to be walking towards the door where all of the guys were standing, and two of the pieces of camera equipment completely drained of their batteries. So can't say that it's paranormal, but it's definitely very interesting when it happens during an investigation. Makes you question what it could be.
That was a pretty definitive answer, I think. We also have, what do you think is the status of the ghosts that you feel are here? I guess what do they want? That's a general question that we got multiple times.
I think it depends on the location.
The claims. I how you understand the question?
There's, in the paranormal world, people talk about residual hauntings and intelligent hauntings. Or intelligent, obviously, it can interact with you. You ask questions, it responds. You tell it to move something, it'll move something. Whereas the residual is more like a broken record. It doesn't have any intelligence. It's, you know, the story here of at 3 o'clock in the morning, you see a woman walking down the hallway every night. It doesn't interact with you. It doesn't know it's there. And there's just different ideas on what that could possibly be. It's more of, again, this is just what they say. This isn't necessarily our beliefs, but it's the residual, they say, could be energy released from the location. Kind of like if there's bloodshed, something that blood got in the ground, and over time that whatever energy is in the blood, it gets released, causing the residual apparition, if you will, to happen. Again, it's just a case by case situation there.
And if you believe in the tape theory, like Kelly was mentioning in the clip, that energy gets stored in the walls, the floor, and then just happens to, something triggers it to replay it. Not necessarily saying that we believe in that, but it is one of the beliefs is that the stone tape theory is just that you're at the right time, the right place, and you see this kind of get replayed. Something triggers it to be replayed in terms of a residual hauntings. I don't know if that answers the question. I hope so.
We did have multiple questions about capturing visual images of ghosts and what are the challenges related to that? How often do you get that, or whether or not you get them? And just the challenges related to capturing them visually, I guess.
I mean, we use video cameras pretty heavily in our investigations. However, it's not for the reason that most people would think. It's not necessarily with the idea that we're going to capture an apparition or a ghost or whatever it could be. It's really more to have a point of reference that we can check later if we got any recordings or anything like that we could look at the camera and say, was there someone there at that point in time? So it's really more of a way for us to kind of check after the fact to make sure, or try and eliminate the possibility that someone was there when that sound was made, and that it's not paranormal. It's, it was just someone walking by. But I mean, photography and video is pretty complicated. There's so many different things that could happen when you are taking photos or video that people would easily look at and say, oh, I caught a ghost. But there's so many other explanations as to what those things you've captured actually are. So I don't know if you want to tackle that one.
I guess I like tricky questions.
Yes,
I guess.
you like those tricky questions.
So unfortunately, I could probably spend like 30 minutes on this question. But yeah, I'm not. I'll try to sum it up as quickly as possible. And sorry about my dog rocking on the floor. But I think a lot of people think like photography and video is like infallible, right? Because like you're taking a picture in its absolute, and whatever you capture is what you capture. And that's unfortunately not the case. There's a lot that goes on in photography And there's a lot of interpretation about what you're looking at. And then you get to this brain, which is very complex. And our brains are built to see images where there may not be images. And so a lot of times we will form images in our brain which just aren't meant to be formed, right? And so we have to kind of keep that in mind when we look at pictures and video. Are we looking at something that is something, or is it just lens flare? Is it an artifact from the camera of some kind? Is it dust? Is it a bug? Or is it just nothing? And a lot of the work happens after an image is captured, where we go back and we try to use like the scientific process to go over like what it could be and try to recreate the photo in some way, or the video in question. But yeah, video and photo is hard, man. Like, I think a lot of people make it like, or I shouldn't say a lot of people, but there's some assumptions that like what you capture is absolute, and it's just not. There's still a lot of interpretation when it comes to photo and video.
I can say
For example, if you look at the window that's between Nelson and Nick, it looks like there's a woman like looking to the side towards Nelson wearing a white dress with dark hair, but that is not a woman. That is just the way that it shows up in that window.
Looks green to me.
Related to that, how often do you spend time at the Mordecai House?
So our agreement with the park is that we typically get to investigate the property 4 times per year. And normally an investigation starts roughly at about 6 or 7 at night, and we go until 2 or so in the morning. And we spread out throughout the entire park so we can cover as much as possible of the area. So that's about how often we investigate Mordecai specifically. We do other locations as well, but Mordecai is 4 times a year. Although we haven't done it as much for the last couple of years because the parks had some closures due to COVID and also staff shortages. So typically four times a year.
Oh, all right. Do you always feel a presence before hearing a presence via the equipment or technology, or is it vice versa? Or
no.
A lot of times when the few personal experiences I've had, I don't even realize it until maybe 10 or 15 seconds later, because the way my brain operates is it happens. I just think it's something normal, and then it starts to register. Well, it wasn't this, it wasn't this, it wasn't this. And then something in my head goes, oh, wow, I need to stop what I'm doing. And that may have actually been something, because I just dismissed everything else all of a sudden. And it's kind of weird how sometimes it works like that. It's like you think it's something natural, and then okay, maybe it wasn't that. Maybe it was actually a ghost or a spirit. Then you just have to go through the process of elimination after that. And then you do just like in the shows and everything, things that happen like that, and you go, oh gosh, and stuff like that. That's pretty rare though.
You don't say oh gosh a lot.
Kelly, did you also want to tackle this one?
I think about it in terms of, for me, feeling things might come a little bit differently from other members of the team who don't have kind of more empathic experiences. And so there are times where I might have empathic experiences, but then, I'm not capturing anything on video or on a, EVP recording, or, my equipment's not lighting up. And then there are other times where I don't feel anything in a space. I'm not getting any images. I'm not getting any feelings, but then the equipment goes off, so I tend to prefer the times where we do have instances where I have some kind of experience and it's backed up by equipment going off or capturing an EVP or, something to kind of give it some more substance. But we have all of those different types of experiences. And not everybody in our team believes in empaths and psychics and we are a well-rounded team with a lot of different types of members and different belief systems, and we all respect each other for that.
Yeah, and like I've never felt anything. I think it'd be great. Like I would love to feel like a presence, but it's never happened to me before. I feel something on my shoulder now, though. I don't know what that was.
Do you ever get the impression that whatever presences you encounter want you to resolve anything for them, or that there's any kind of action that they want you to take?
Callie, that would be one for you in terms of feeling.
I was thinking about this recently. I had an interesting experience, not related to the Mordecai house, but I kind of came into contact with a very interesting energy that I can only describe as like a mixture of like sad and like persistent. Like it was trying to get me to like figure out a clue. I was sitting in a cemetery at the time in the mountains of North Carolina, and it was like showing me, it was like it was leading me to a specific stone in the cemetery. And it was like the stone in the cemetery that you couldn't see the name, you couldn't see who it was. And it clicked for me that what the spirit was trying to say is that like, I'm not going to be remembered. That's what kept coming to me, is I'm not going to be remembered because my name isn't on the stone. So, you know, some people think that's, you know, like, oh, that's just in your head. And maybe it is. But it did make me start to do some research on that cemetery to try to figure out who it could be. And, you know, if I'm able to kind of go further in that research and utilize our Tracy and our Christina, you know, maybe potentially we could petition for that cemetery to maybe get a placard of, you know, the individuals who their stones no longer hold their names.
I know we're running low on time. We did have some trivia. Would this be a good time, Stacy? Actually, before though, I did see a few questions I think I could very, very quickly address. I was asked how long we've been investigating Mordecai for. We've been doing it since 2017. There was a question about why we do it at night. Quite honestly, there's no reason to do it at night. The majority of the time we do it at night is because that's when we are able to get into those places. Mordecai is a museum during the day, they're open. So nighttime is really the only time that we get to go. And so that would explain why we do it at night, but there's no reason as to why you need to investigate at night. You think about it, you know, anything residual should be happening during the day anyway, when people were asleep, right? There was a question about equipment. Sorry, I know we're short on time.
No.
We focus mostly on like data loggers, anything that's going to collect data that we can then try to associate any activity to environment variables. So we have these data loggers that collect humidity, pressure, temperature, and actually record those throughout the entire night. We also have a lot of audio recorders, especially this one is an ambisonic recorder. It actually records 360 degrees, so it helps identify the direction that the sound actually came from versus just a regular recorder, which we also use a lot of. Then we do have just these small I mentioned during the presentation that we have these little recorders that we put out throughout the park during the investigation. And we kind of create a grid of these. And so if there's any sounds that are heard inside the house, we could then review the audio on these outside and see if those sounds were captured, and based on, you know, the triangulate where that sound came from based on which device the sound is loudest on. And so we could try to eliminate that the sound came from inside or outside or so forth. So hopefully that addresses the question on equipment. And I know there's a lot of other questions, but I'm guessing, Stacy, if we're going to do the drawing, we should do that now, right?
Yeah, let's go ahead and roll on with that.
Share. There we go. right, so we're just gonna do a
Like a ghost took your mouse.
It's really odd.
It was highlighting stuff.
Hopefully they don't see the chat window that's open. They all see the actual. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So the prize we have for you tonight actually is a "I Got Haunted by the Mordecai Ghost" T-shirt. We actually have 2 of them up for grabs. And what we're going to be doing is actually asking some questions. 2 questions, 1 question per shirt. And the first person to answer the question correctly wins the prize. All of the answers are available in tonight's presentation. So if you all have paid attention, here's your chance to win. All right, Christina.
All right. According to legend, who is believed to be the Gray Lady, and what instrument is she still hearing playing today?
It'd be a electric.
Amber.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw Amber had both answers in hers.
Okay. So, all right. Tracy, you'll be reaching out to Amber to ask for contact information.
Amber, I'm typing you a message right now to grab your contact information and give you information on how to pick up your t-shirt.
Congratulations, Amber.
Yay, Amber.
Okay, and that leaves us to question number 2. Who built, I'm sorry, Christina. I'm trying to get on time here, make sure we don't go over.
Oh, yes. We have a winner.
She muted?
I think somebody already got the answer anyway.
All right.
Yeah, I think they see their question. That's okay. I think we already got the answer.
Tracy, did you find a first person to respond there?
Yeah, they scrolled by so quickly. Hold on, I'm going to grab the first one that had the answer right. Had both answers. There we go. It looks like Dan W.
Woohoo!
Congrats, Dan.
Yes. Congratulations. All right, and just to close out, what we want to do is kind of share with you some things that we have that are upcoming. So if you're interested in following us more as other events or activities that we have coming up, we, as mentioned in the presentation, we do have the Haunted Festival, the annual Haunted Festival, and that is this Saturday. So you can join us at 7:30. We'll be going live on both YouTube and Facebook. It's kind of a similar format to what you've seen tonight. There's a mix of history, a mix of folklore, a mix of the data that we have collected over our years of investigating, but it's not just the Mordecai House. It actually includes all of the different buildings on the Mordecai Historic Park property. And this year we've also added the Borden Building and Tucker House. So you can join us for that. We'd love to have you join us for that. We do have the scan code on the side if you want to scan that with your phone. Other things that we also have coming up, if you are interested, we're often asked how it's possible for people to participate or join on investigations. We do offer at least once a year an opportunity for the public to join us on investigations. We typically do that on the USS Battleship North Carolina, and we do have an event that's going to be coming up April 9th. We will be sharing the details and all on December 1st. So if you follow our Facebook page, you'll see that information as soon as we release. So you can scan that code.
Battleship's a good time. It's something you don't want to miss.
It is. We also have a partnership with Historic Salisbury Foundation. We were supposed to do a presentation this month as part of that partnership called A Muddle of Mystery and a Chaser of History. Unfortunately, due to COVID, it was postponed, but we will be rescheduling that to sometime in the spring. So stay tuned for that as well. And if you like all this kind of stuff, we are starting a new podcast. The date exactly as to when it'll be starting has not been announced yet. But if you follow our Facebook page, or actually there is also a page for Ghosts and Stuff podcast on Facebook. So you can go ahead and like that as well and be notified when that starts.
Who's going to be doing that podcast?
I think it's some guy. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Also, if you are looking for an opportunity to just kind of get together, meet up with people that are like-minded, we do have, we've partnered with Inspire, which is the team you saw Nikki tonight, was the team that was the investigation team for, part of the investigation team from Mordecai before the Ghost Guild was. And we've partnered with them, and we do host this monthly meetup. And we basically just pick different places around the triangle. People are welcome to come and join us and just talk about spirits and spooks. All right. Just all the different ways that people can keep in contact with us. We hope you'll consider liking or following our Facebook page, subscribing to us on YouTube. We drop content every once in a while. And we'd love to have you, follow us, and I guess that's it. Anything else? Sorry, I was speeding up there. 8:03.
Yeah, and we'll have more prizes that you can win at the festival on Saturday too. So if you were disappointed that you did not win a t-shirt tonight, there are still more prizes to come.
Yeah, and actually, in a highlight there as well, there's the two major prizes. I mean, there's a bunch of them, but the two major ones is one is an opportunity to join us on a future investigation at Mordecai Historic Park. And the other one actually is a one-year membership to the North Carolina Museum of History. So make sure to join us for that.
And you're always more than welcome to ask your questions that didn't get answered on our Facebook page.
Yeah,
I will try not to respond in essay format, although
don't believe him on that.
The festival only online, or it is online again this year. Yes, we hope to get back to the in-person format next year. It's just that where we normally do our presentations is kind of a small enclosed area, and so we just don't want to put people at unnecessary risk. And so just doing it online again this year, and hopefully next year we'll be back to having it in person. Sorry, I just saw that question pop up.
It's all good. Thank you so much, Nelson and the Ghost Guild, for this awesome virtual trip to Mordecai. Y'all never fail to amaze and entrance us with all the work that you do. And what a special way for us to get ready for this Halloween weekend coming up. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to all those of you who joined us this evening. We hope that you'll join us again next week as we honor Diwali by linking with the Freer Gallery of Art and Arthur M. Sackler Gallery, the Smithsonian's National Museum of Asian Art, for their special virtual cooking demo for Diwali, the Festival of Lights, happening Wednesday, November 3rd from 6 to 7 p.m. via Zoom. You can learn more about this program and all of our others by visiting the museum's website at ncmuseumofhistory.org. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Ghost Guild.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.